Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Book HQ. So today I'm going to be talking about A Wrinkle in Time. It's a super interesting book. I read it in one day. Once I started reading it, I couldn't stop, and so I figured out what the mystery was. And the story revolves around the Murray family, who are basically a family of geniuses. The Murray mom has multiple PhDs. The Murray dad is a physicist doing top secret work for the government. Then he goes missing. And so the main protagonist is the daughter in the Murray family and the youngest child in the Murray family. So the daughter's name is Meg, and the youngest child is Charles Wallace. And for some reason, everybody in their community seems to think Charles Wallace is like dumb or like retarded somehow. And they also think that Meg is troubled and she's also super unintelligent, which couldn't be farther from the truth. She's kind of acting out because her father is missing and it's putting a big strain on her family. But then on top of that, adults in the book seem to kind of be bullying her to kind of feel bad or worse about the fact that her dad is gone and is never coming back, which I didn't quite get. Her and her little brother Charles Wallace end up meeting with these drifters who kind of came into town and stole someone's blankets. And these drifters are three little old women, Mrs. Watson, Mrs. Who, and Mrs. Witch. And they happen to know a lot about the work of Meg's parents, and it's revealed later on that they're actually there to help Meg find her dad. So they're kind of on their way to seeing them. There's this boy who also goes to Meg's school, who's a couple of years older than her and is on the basketball team, and he is Calvin O'Keefe, and he happens to be in the neighborhood, so to speak, just as they're about to embark on this big adventure. And so he ends up coming with them, and we kind of learn more about him as they are going on their adventure, and we find out that him and Megan's little brother Charles Wallace are very much the same in terms of like mental capacity. They're both kind of geniuses, but also they have a lot of genius in the way of emotional intelligence. These three beings take these three children to the planet Uriel. And on the planet Uriel, it gets explained to them that, the fastest way to travel isn't through a straight line, but it's actually through wrinkling space and time, because then you can appear somewhere instantaneously. And they discover that there are multiple universes and planets and all sorts of things. But then they also discover that there's this big dark cloud on some of the planets, and this thing is actually what has Meg's father. So they have to travel to the planet that this darkness calls its home, and when they're there, they can help resolve this issue with Meg's dad, but also save several other universes, because they call them dark planets. Planets that are kind of taken over by this dark cloud get referred to as dark planets. Also, whilst they're on this planet Uriel, they discover that these three drifters, or these three little old ladies, aren't really people, and they're beings who have been around for gabillions of years, and they're like superior. The one, Mrs. Watson, actually was a star, and she died fighting off this evil force, and now she's chosen to kind of help guide Meg and Calvin and Charles Wallace to get their dad back and to fight this being. It's a super interesting book. The descriptions of the beings reminded me a lot of the descriptions in the book of Revelations in the Bible, which I thought was really interesting. And there's also a couple of parts in the book where they refer directly to the Bible, like quoting some scriptures from the Bible. And it's also interesting that one of the three beings, Mrs. Who, I believe, she finds it easier to express herself by quoting, because she's so old that language doesn't come so easy to her on her own, like, so she just uses quotes from everywhere to express herself. So she quotes in like German, Latin, French, and it's really interesting. So they go off on this adventure. They discover the fifth dimension, and they go to this planet that I said that this dark thing calls its home. It's called Camazotz. And on this planet, everything and everyone is exactly the same. They're like drones. They're controlled by this dark force. They go there to try and save her dad, and they kind of do manage to save their dad, but Charles Wallace gets captured by this nefarious force, and so they have to kind of go back and regroup and figure out how to come back and save Charles Wallace, which they end up doing. But I had a couple of questions. A couple of things were unresolved for me towards the end of the book, because they do end up saving Charles Wallace, but we're not sure if saving him means that they've also saved all the other planets, which are dark planets, because of this nefarious force. Also interesting to note is that Meg's mom is supposedly very beautiful. It's mentioned several times. They go into great detail about how beautiful she is. The woman is fine, and the thirst is real. So Meg maybe gets a little bit of her insecurities from that, because she's also extremely self-deprecating, and I was kind of like, oh, why does she have this huge chip on her shoulder? That is the book. It's a super interesting book. I haven't given away what it is, but when you find out, if you read the book, you will be very surprised. I'm looking forward to the movie, which is coming out this year in March. It's a Disney film, and I'm really curious to see how they're gonna visualize all these creatures that I talked about in the book. There's one part in the book where they go to this planet where these creatures don't have sight. They don't have eyes. They don't have any need for it. It's difficult to explain what sight and light and things are for them. So I'm interested to see that how they're going to bring that to the big screen. In the trailer, you kind of see the kids flying on what I presume to be Mrs. What's-It. And the description in the book doesn't feel to me like that's what it is, what we're seeing in the trailer, because it kind of looks like a flying slug, but we'll get to see what that is. But I think it's just going to be a feast for the eyes. What I'm really hoping is that the movie is going to be as mind-blowing as the book itself. If you've read the book, if you know anything about it, do let me know in the comments below. Leave me a comment in the comments below because I want to know what you think. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and do so. I really appreciate the support. Until next time, keep reading and keep watching. Bye-bye.